are joined from Cairo by the international relations expert, Mr. Mohamed Osman. Welcome, sir, to Q News. Sir, what do UNRWA's findings on acute child malnutrition tell us about the conditions on the ground, and what immediate access is required to prevent the deaths? Sir, I hope you can hear me. What do UNRWA's findings on acute child malnutrition tell us about the conditions on the ground, and what immediate access is required to prevent deaths, please?
Good evening to you, and thank you for having me here. Actually, this is another crime from the Israeli occupation forces, and of course over the past period, even after the agreement that was and we have here more than 500 violations from Israel and from Israel's side, and they have even stopped delivery of humanitarian aid, and with everything that they are doing with aggressions against the civilians and the children, especially either the dead or the killed or even the alive one now, and then also not using the huge number of tons that is being said of a humanitarian aid. They have been hindered, and the Palestinians have no access to them because of Israel. And then something else also, this is no news to Israel. They are trying to suffocate the civilians basically, and they are carrying aggression after another and a crime after another against the Palestinian civilians. Something else also is we have seen a large some kind of condemnation or war on the UNRWA, because Israel knows that the UNRWA is standing up for the Palestinians, and they really can help the Palestinians, and so and that they have also a huge role when it comes to distributing aid and delivering aid to each and every Palestinian and families in the Gaza Strip. Number 4 here in the Gaza Strip, Israel thinks that they need to take advantage of each and every piece of land there, and that there are some things that have to do with tensions escalating again on the Gaza Strip, and also, of course, Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Smotrich want to take advantage of the situation on the Gaza Strip with the tensions escalating, as I said. They are also hindering the aid as well, as I said.
Sir, Mr. Yemeni, the IPC warns of catastrophic hunger. What do you think are the specific corridors and maybe inspection routines that are needed this week to scale food and medical deliveries safely?
Actually, things are catastrophic, yes. Not just now, but it has been for the past 2 years, actually. And then something else is also we have 3 main points here, and very important ones. The Gazans need basic necessities to live. When it comes to health, they need medicine and sanitary products. They need humanitarian aid and food. But now the Israeli media is trying to black out this, and they're not releasing this, of course. But in the Gaza Strip, everyone knows the international organizations and even the United Nations have actually warned and said that the Gaza Strip is facing a famine right now, an acute famine, and that they have so much illnesses spreading because of unsanitary situations and lack of food and basic necessities, and they've been experiencing this for 2 years. And then we know that humanitarian aid is being delivered in large amounts. We know, of course, about the agreement, the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and US President Donald Trump, there was a very important point here that they talked about. They need to deliver around 600 air trucks to the Gaza Strip, but unfortunately, this number was never actually fulfilled. They were unable to send, or they allow the entry of around 158 trucks only, and then we need the U.S. to intervene. As I said, we've seen the mediators contacting the U.S. administration, and especially with President Donald Trump, they need to contact them about aid delivery in large amounts and to deliver the 608 trucks that they agreed upon. We have seen things kind of stable since the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, and things, of course, are better than they have been before the ceasefire. But this,
sir, if I may, Qatar now says that Palestinians must not be forced from Gaza and raise concerns about who pays for reconstruction. What do you think is maybe a fair burden sharing model that could unlock the funding now, do you think?
and this is a very important question actually, because reconstruction needs measures that are preset after this progress on so many levels. If we were talking before, or we were saying that the Gaza Strip needs around 10 years to go back to how it was before war, but if we can get funding and workers from all the Arab countries, it will help them reach this in a shorter period. As we know, the U.S. actually is rooting for the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, to help with the reconstruction, and I don't think that any Arab country opposes this. On the other hand, actually, because unfortunately the infrastructure in the Gaza Strip is completely destroyed. They have attacked hospitals and schools, institutions, and so the Gaza Strip is not ready for people to live there, and it needs reconstruction as soon as possible. And it is one of the points actually of phase 2 of the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, and so this is why Netanyahu is trying to stall here and trying to manipulate phase 2 and not going or starting phase 2. Just earlier today, before I started this interview here, I heard Netanyahu talking and saying that he doesn't want to recognize a Palestinian statehood, and that a two-state solution is not an option also. And of course this is no news to Israel, but he is trying to make up pretexts and problems here so that he can manipulate time and not move on to phase 2. But of course it has, where he is tied to the U.S. approval or green light, and I think that they will push him to move on to phase 2, and that they will pressure him to implement the second phase fully, because the stabilization and the international stabilization forces that the UN has talked about, the UNSC has talked about, 2803, that they need to implement this. And then also, if we talk about reconstruction, as I said just earlier, maybe we can achieve full reconstruction in less than 10 years if the Arab countries work together. And we also know that other countries that are not Arab will also contribute to reconstruction. But unfortunately, we need a full ceasefire before we can start reconstruction, and we also need the Israeli forces to withdraw fully from the Gaza Strip. The gradual withdrawal that was mentioned in phase 1, and of course from time to time Israel is having some negotiations and talks over the past few days.
Okay,
we've seen
sir,
another
if phase 2 of the truce begins very shortly, what must its first 30 days include in order to stabilize aid and protect civilians and make sure all crossings are consistently open?
Of course, we need so much. We need international monitoring, UN monitoring, and monitoring from international organizations, and of course, we talked about this before the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, and even it was even talked about in the Jan agreement when President Donald Trump visited. And so these logistics are actually very, very important and crucial to deliver aid in large amounts. And also Egypt has talked right after the agreement was signed about the logistics and how food will be distributed and how to deliver these large number of aid trucks to the Gazans in the strips and cities like Qnews, for example, and other areas in the Gaza Strip. And then also something else is how to and so here this is actually the UN's job and the mediators' job, of course, especially the US that has always talked about how much force influence they have, and talking about the international forces that will govern Gaza. And so we need the US to make sure that there is a system to make sure that everything is going smoothly so that we can deliver a large amount of humanitarian aid better than they have been being delivered.
Sir, maybe you can tell us how do the statements from Israel's leadership and the European partners shape the timing and scope of phase 2? And where are the main points, or what are they, the main points of friction?
When it comes to the statements that you mentioned, he knows that time is of essence. He knows that the media here are trying to expose him, and he knows that controlling the media and having them publish what he wants is very important here, and that the crisis is now not only internal in the far-right extremist government, but it is on so many levels now, security level and economic level. What Israel is doing through internally, people are rioting and they are leaving Israel. There are demonstrations, and so I think all of this actually has an effect. But something that's very important that I want to talk about here is we need these statements to not have any kind of influence, and this is actually the US and Trump's job. They need to pressure Netanyahu to move on to the second phase, because the second phase here, Netanyahu knows that it is very hard and that it needs some conditions to approve. And they need this approval between Israel and Washington, because he doesn't want Trump getting angry at him. As we know, he has elections upcoming in 2026.
And from Cairo, that was the international relations expert, Mr. Mohamed El-Yemeni. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News.